Welcome back to Interjections. This is IJ Subito. Inter knockout Bayern from the Champions League 4-3 on aggregate after today's 2-2 draw in the home leg. We're through to the Champions League semifinals. A date in Camp Nou against Barcelona awaits. I'm your host, Andrew. We've got the American block with me here tonight. Sterling, pleasure as always.
Pleasure to be here. I'm just glad that I'm finally allowed to celebrate. Harry Kane called me personally, gave me permission, said you guys are allowed to celebrate now. Company shot me a text, said, got the green light. So I'm just here to celebrate.
That's right. We have permission. We celebrated satisfactory for them. We didn't disrespect them. We did everything we had to do. We even said thank you. Irfan, what's happening?
Guten Tag. How are you guys doing? Life is pretty good right now. No complaints. We slayed the Germans in convincing fashion, and I'm excited. It was a good game. Excited to get into it, but yeah, it feels good, man. I tell you what, we talked about this in the last episode we did after the Champions League, but man, these Tuesday and Wednesday night wins late into the Champions League knockouts, there's just something special about them.
It's been a rough couple days for Germany. 2 teams knocked out of the Champions League. You just hate to see it. You just hate it.
I'm sure.
Let's get into this. What an exciting night. It's just so great to see everyone so engaged. Every Inter fan I know is online, sending messages, posting good content. It's just a beautiful time, and I'm just proud of this team for this performance today. It was a great thing to watch, and what stands out for me above all else was the mental toughness today, the resiliency. Like, this team showed so much resiliency over both legs against Bayern. We talked about in the first leg, we were punched in the mouth early. Bayern came out hot with pressure, but Lautaro scored. We weathered the storm. And then even when Bayern equalized late, we immediately had an answer with Vertezi's goal. And it was more of that today, except even more definitive, even more damning. Because after a touch-and-go first half where, let's be honest, neither team was great in the first half. Neither team had a decisive edge. But Bayern scored an early goal in the second half through Harry Kane. And, I mean, let's be honest, we were all worried at that point. We go tied on aggregates. We haven't looked great. We haven't been creating a ton of chances. And you just the doubt starts to creep in, and you say, can this team do it? Are we in trouble? And Bayern have the momentum, the belief. Everything's pointing in their direction. But just once again, we respond. We immediately hit them back. It was 6 minutes later, Lautaro pushes us ahead on aggregates. And then Pavard doubles the lead 3 minutes later. And it was a damn, like, we can do this moment. Such an impressive performance. And it was the response of champions, guys. Like, this is what this team is proving its mettle and showing they're capable of winning this competition. And that's my key takeaway from this match today is we can win this thing. It's ours for the taking. And yeah, if you check the sports books right now, we have the longest odds to win the Champions League. But you know what? We can win this competition. There's no doubt in my mind after the performance we put together over 2 legs here today. I'll just give one special shout out to Lautaro. We gave this guy a lot of flack this season. He started off the season poorly. But man, a goal in 5 straight Champions League games, 2 just monster performances against Bayern. He worked hard, he pressed, he dropped back deep, he scored a critical goal. He just did it all. And the captain of this team leading the line after the match, putting company in his place, just being a true captain of this club. It was the perfect evening. Sterling, what were your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I agree with a lot with what was said there. I've been listening to different opinions from different podcasts and shows, post-match opinions following today and also following last week. And, I was kind of struck by a lot of the pundits saying that they felt like really Bayern outplayed us over the course of the 2 legs. I do definitely think that they created chances, and I think they created more chances than I thought that they would create. Certainly today there were some iffy moments, but I think that when you look at this in totality, not once were we ever behind in this tie. We were either level or ahead. And once we took the lead in the first leg, we were never even tied for more than I think a combined maybe 10 minutes across both legs. Every time Bayern tied it up, we immediately went back ahead within minutes. So, you can look at that and say, well, maybe we just decided to play when we needed to. And maybe we always just had enough. I think that there's a lot of what ifs from Bayern's side. They're going to say, well, what if we had Musiala? What if we had the left back whose name Davies? They certainly were missing some players, but we missed a couple players as well. And again, every single time we had to come out and play, every single time that we had to respond, we responded immediately. So I think that we kind of managed it well across two legs. And listen, it's not the prettiest. I think that maybe there's large sections of the football populace that are still not really used to watching inter games. And they may look at the way that we approach these legs and think that we were outplayed because Bayern had a lot more possession. And they had some chances, no doubt about that. But a lot of those were half chances. And the truth is that they didn't take those chances. And we took our chances, whether it was through open play or through set pieces. I mean, we got two set piece goals today. And listen, guys, those are completely legitimate ways to score goals. I heard, Harry Kane kind of complaining after the match today, saying, I can't believe we gave up two goals on set pieces, but you got to defend your set pieces. I mean, one of the teams on the other side of the bracket, Arsenal. I mean, how many goals have they scored off of set pieces this year? And when they do it, they're praised for it. Um, Listen, it's part of the game. It's another phase of the game, and we defend those well. And today we took advantage of them. And shout out to Pavard. I thought he had a really solid game today. Came up with some really big blocks early on, especially the one against Elise, who, by the way, is a stud. Can't say that anything bad about that guy over two legs. I mean, I was familiar with his game a little bit, but this was certainly the closest I've seen him over an extended period of time, and I was very impressed. I think that he's really an interesting player, definitely the best winger that they have in this current Bayern squad, which is a squad that has some decent winger talent in it still. So I was very impressed by him, but I think Pavard put in a great block early, and just overall had a really solid game today. I thought he was much better than he was actually in the first leg, where he almost had that mistake that led to a goal. And then obviously he chose a very, very good time to get his first ever enter goal. It's kind of crazy. He's like the only player in the squad that really hasn't scored over the last season or so. But listen, better late than never. He came up with a massive goal when we needed it most, and just had an all around fantastic game. Lautaro, obviously, was touched on earlier. I think that listen, this tie, both legs, this was the moment for him to really shut a lot of haters up, and myself included. And I've never been a Lautaro hater by any means. I've always actually been a very big Lautaro fan, but I've also been a Lautaro realist in terms of what the numbers were saying. And what the numbers were saying in prior years was that he was not scoring in the Champions League, and he was not scoring in big games in the Champions League. And a goal in each game. You know, he is the difference essentially in this tie. Scoring in both legs, the overall play, the link up play. Lautaro was even dribbling today. When has Lautaro dribbled in general, much less against a team the quality of Bayern? And the dribbles were coming off. Like it wasn't like he just got by on one. I mean, he obviously was very comfortable out there today. Maybe he figured something out. I don't know, but a lot of composure across both legs with receiving the ball in tight spaces, turning, bringing teammates into play, playing balls around the corner, winning 50-50. I mean, we were forced to play a lot of long balls today because we were pressed so high by Bayern. And to be honest, we didn't have to play through the press because we had the lead on aggregate. So it just made more sense to just go ahead and blast it to our forwards. And they had to do a lot of dirty work today. They had to do a lot of fighting, and they did it really well. They were absolutely gassed by the end of the match. And I was a little bit surprised when Inzaghi decided to take off Lautaro instead of Thuram. I thought that Thuram looked worse at that moment. He looked a lot more leggy, but listen, Inzaghi did what he did, and obviously it ended up working out for us. So the rest is history. But overall, I think that Lautaro, this was a huge step forward in terms of how he's viewed internationally. I think that I've heard a lot of people talking about how good he is and the fact that this team has no stars except for Lautaro. And so I think that that's um, credit to him for the performance that he's put in across these two legs. And I was very very excited with his performance and what it means for the future as well, because I feel like now he has that confidence doing it against a big team in Europe in a crunch situation. I just know he's going to score in the Barcelona tie. So, yeah, that was my thoughts on today.
It's so frustrating. I call it the Barcelonization of the sport, which is that there's this holier than thou attitude that if you outpossess a team, you automatically deserve to win the game. And sure, Bayern had greater possession numbers than us today. There's no doubt about it. But if you look at XG, it's almost identical. If you think about the number of dangerous chances Bayern had and didn't convert, what were they? Muller putting a shot over the bar that he probably should have done better on. Even then, they pulled a ridiculous goal out of nowhere with Dyer. Like it just,
Yeah, that's a lucky
it's
goal. Let's
frustrating.
be honest. He couldn't do that.
It might have been a
If you gave him
cross,
10
for being honest.
chances. Yeah, I don't think he was trying to score. I think he was just trying to put it back into a dangerous area, and he got a little lucky on a windy night. But yeah, I mean, without that fluky goal, I mean, this we probably do see the game out, and it looks a whole lot better on paper, and it looks a whole lot easier. But this team never does anything the easy way.
No, no, of course. We can never do things the easy way. But yeah, I saw Thierry Henry after the match saying Bayern were the better team over the course of two legs. Jay was posting that, was it Hargraves was saying that Bayern could have scored 6 goals. It's just ridiculous, the takes you see. And I'm just going to warn you guys all, it's going to get worse as Barcelona lurk around the corner. But it doesn't matter. About the forwards, I'll just say Lautaro and Thuram put so much pressure on Bayern center backs throughout these two fixtures. Kim struggled immensely in both games. He picked up a booking in both games. He could not contain Thuram. And was Thuram perfect? No, but he worked so hard. He was constantly just causing trouble, forcing Dyer and Kim to intervene. And when you force center backs to constantly make decisions, constantly make tackles, they're going to make mistakes. And you picked up a couple bookings on them. You made them play a little more conservative. And then on that Pavard header, just Pavard wanted more than Kim did. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. He just went up there with intent, with purpose. Kim, it was half-assed. It was poor defending, and he deserved the goal.
Something you mentioned that's important too is the fact that we got 2 yellow cards on the center backs so early in the match 100% determines the second half in terms of the ability for them to actually keep the press on us, because they couldn't go through the back of Thuram or Lautaro anymore like they were in the first half, and that really opens up the game a ton. So I think that that's a really good point you made there.
Yeah, and I totally thought that they were fortunate that Dyer went through the back of Thuram a couple times when Thuram was like attacking and Dyer was chasing him down from behind. And honestly, they were fortunate that those calls with a different referee could have gone another way. So I really don't want to hear it about Bayern outplaying us tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are exactly right. There's a couple, obviously I echo and agree with everything that Sterling said and that you said, Andrew. I think overall, this was a really inspiring team performance. I think they played really well. They played with a lot of heart. They were scrappy. The guys played really, really hard, and you could tell Pavard had, an epic match. Lautaro over the two legs, especially today, was just incredible. And he was doing, once again, so much stuff throughout the match, even before he scored his goal, that it'd be really difficult for anyone to complain about his performance, even had he not scored the goal. So he, one of the criticisms on him has always been that, he saves it for, the lower table teams in Serie A. But this is one of the biggest moments, of his club career. And he definitely came up big in both legs against really difficult opposition. So he definitely deserves his due. Ironically enough, I thought that everyone played really well. I thought DeMarco and Barella, to me, kind of stuck out as probably among the more poorer performers, even though they both worked really hard and they did a lot. I think DeMarco could have done a lot more on that Harry Kane goal. I mean, you have to know who you're up against there, and you have to know kind of what he can do. So I think if you're going to criticize anyone, you maybe criticize those two guys, but it's really hard to criticize them because, once again, you also have to think about how old this team is, how many matches they've been playing, and how they're fighting on all of these fronts. Arsenal, just to compare it to Arsenal is pretty much out of the EPL race. They're not going to catch up to Liverpool, and their team is super young, right? So they're athletic, they're young, they have a lot of stamina. We started 3 guys who are over 35 years old today. So this is a team full of veterans and a team that's pretty injured as well. And I'm not saying that because I'm taking away anything from Bayern and their injuries. I'm just saying that I'm giving my team credit for how hard they played, given all that they've been up against. There's a couple of myths that are really irritating me that I wanted to address in this. One of them you guys have already talked about, which is this idea that Bayern was the superior team between the two matches, between the two legs. I don't know what people are watching when they say that. I honestly feel like it's either just a generic throwaway statement from people because Bayern has a bigger name, or they're somehow biased when they're watching the match. You cannot look at the two matches and say that Bayern were demonstrably better than us in both legs. They had their moments, sure, but they were also really, really well contained by us. And all of our goals were not fortuitous goals by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there was a clear plan, clear execution in all those cases. So I don't really know why people keep talking about the fact that Bayern were the better team. I don't think that's true at all. The other myth that I'll say was kind of debunked here was, this idea that, we can only defend if we play a low block, or that, we will retreat into that really defensive shape. For the most part in this match, I felt like we defended really well overall while retaining some of that outlet pressure that forced Bayern to also defend. And you guys talked about, get the 2 yellow cards. So I really like the approach that we took here. I mean, I thought we were pretty patient. We weren't forcing the issue, but I also don't think that we played 90 minutes of falling back into our own box and just defending, because I think that would have been a disaster, to be honest. So I think we played our game pretty well. Obviously, it was tough. Bayern's a really good team, even with the injuries. The other myth that I thought was really coming on a lot today, even from Inter fans, which I know you guys disagreed with, but this idea that Thuram somehow didn't have a good game. This is one of those matches where I think people really forget how important it is for people like Thuram and Lautaro to do the things that they're doing. Because every single time that Thuram is fouled, every single time that he draws a yellow card, or any single time that he puts the defense in pressure and prevents them from supplementing some sort of attack that Bayern's doing, is a huge facet of the game. And so I thought Thuram played really well today, and he was definitely gassed. But Thuram and Lautaro both were really good. And finally, I'll just say, I do think it's funny. As you guys know, I do not like probably a single English player. I can't stand the English national team. Don't like any of their players. I will say I don't particularly like the guy, but I do respect Harry Kane's game. I do think he's a good player, and I think he's probably one of the few real world number 9s that are out there. And the way we played against him today and in the first leg should be something that the defense should like work on and kind of think about as we face probably one of the other few remaining true number 9s in the world, which is Lewandowski. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how we line up against Barcelona and how we kind of treat Lewandowski, who is very similar, I think, in a lot of ways to the way Harry Kane plays. And, we were one post away from Harry Kane basically, changing the direction of this tie. So we're going to have to be ultra vigilant and play really well against Barca as well. And not just Lewandowski, but their entire attacking and midfield setup.
I think that's a good shout on Turam, by the way, Irfan, because I would call his performance today really professional. And I think he followed Inzaghi's instructions to a T, and he really sacrificed for the team. He wasn't as sharp as you would want him to be, maybe in front of goal, certainly, or on the dribble. I think that he's been nursing an injury for a couple of weeks now, probably almost a month now, and he hasn't really been in his absolute best form. But he went out there today and he really did everything that was needed for Inter to win the game today. It wasn't about Thuram and him getting more on his highlight reel or whatever it may be, like some of these guys from Real Madrid maybe are more concerned with, who don't want to run and press and whatnot. But I think that he showed up today and did what was necessary to help the team in some really sticky situations. And again, getting those yellow cards is a huge factor in the ability of them to play a high line. And I think that obviously did help us eventually get our stranglehold back in the game. So. Um, DeMarco, I will agree on DeMarco having a pretty poor game today. I thought that he was by far our worst performer. I think that was the one thing I kind of was calling on Inzaghi a little bit earlier, hoping that he would make that change for Augusto to come in probably more so around the 60th minute mark, maybe even a little bit sooner. It just didn't seem like DeMarco really was on his game at all from really the first minute. And it's hard to blame him. I mean, he's been out injured. He just came back the prior game. Now he's playing 2 games in a week immediately, and he's playing, Bayern Munich in the Champions League. It's not an easy game by any means to play, even when you're at top form. So we know DeMarco's quality. No shame in saying that he didn't have a great game today. I'm sure that he'll have great games for us in the near future, but I did think that was one player that probably should have been subbed a little bit earlier. Barella as well, definitely off color, but I think that stamp on his leg from Elise, which it was a pure accident. It wasn't like he was trying to step on him, but he hobbled around for a while after that. And I think that kind of threw him off his game a little bit early. He just seemed a little bit off the pace, but he got better as the match went on, as the match opened up, and there wasn't as much high intensity pressure in the midfield. But yeah, I do agree that those two today probably were our worst performers. But I mean, even they weren't bad. I just think about times where we've had people in this team who would absolutely let us down. Banter era players, the Gagliardinis of the world and the like. And one of our worst players on the pitch in a Champions League quarterfinal against Bayern Munich is Barella and DeMarco. We are really in a good place, and we should just remember how far we've really come in such a short time. We really have come out of the wilderness.
Yeah, this just feels like the proper reintroduction of Inter to the world stage, because when we made this is their second semifinal in 3 years, but we made the semifinal a couple years ago. No one was taking us seriously because our side of the bracket was just so much more straightforward. Portuguese teams, it was Napoli playing Milan. No one respected it. Whereas now you've taken a head in Bayern Munich. You have a great chance here against Barcelona. And realistically, all 4 teams left in the Champions League are capable of winning this. There's no weak link. People have to take us seriously. And it's nice seeing the praise being heaped on our players externally. Because as much as we're belly aching about people saying Bayern played better over the course of legs, I will say there are people in the media giving us our due. I was listening to a Bayern podcast earlier today that said we were definitively the better team over the course of 2 legs. And it's nice seeing these players get the respect they deserve because Lautaro, Barella, Bastoni, these are some of the best players in the world who people don't talk nearly enough about. If I were
Even
to give
Craig
another
Burley
shout
on
out for the match, I'd
I'm sorry, I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
even Craig Burley on ESPN FC said that we're gonna win the Champions League. He said it a week ago, and he reiterated it tonight after this game. So that just shows we're getting some love now from I wouldn't say fair weather. Maybe that's not the right way to put it, but from maybe some people who are less familiar with our game.
That's exactly right. And the other guy I want to give a shout out to is Summer, who there was no save Summer had to make tonight that I'd say was like a high degree of difficulty, but it was just steady hands. He didn't spill any chances. He smothered everything. He didn't direct the ball back towards Bayern players. It was very sturdy goalkeeping at the back, and we've seen chances where Olise gets in, puts it low, and a lesser keeper parries it elsewhere in the box, and it becomes another chance. But Summer, there was a couple instances where he gloves those things, and you don't have to worry. So the entire defense really played well. I know we conceded 2 goals. I'd pin the 1 goal on DeMarco. He just needs to do a better job closing down Harry Kane there. And like I said, I forget who put in the cross that Dyer ended up heading into the net. Was it Gnarby? I can't remember. Regardless, I think that was an overhit cross that Dyer somehow gets on the end of, and it was a fluke, accident of a goal. So I'm not going to be too harsh on anyone there. Bisek, we've been critical of his defending. I don't think Bisek was great when he came on. If I'm going to do a content of the week thing, my man Yoram on the forum said Bisek has absolutely no clue where to stand when he's on the pitch. And I agree with that because there were a few times Bayern had possession late. They were looking for that equalizer. And I'm like, dude, you are standing in the wrong position. There are 2 players behind you who you should be paying attention to. So I was nervous when Inzaghi made that sub. But you know what? All in all, he did a decent job, Bisek, helping us close this thing down. And it was a good performance. And then I'm just going through the team, trying to think who else deserves a shout out. I've been very critical of Darmian because I feel like he limits our ability to counterattack effectively. He's just not that fast anymore. And obviously, he's never been a highly technical player. But hey, he had a couple of great chances. I don't know how his one shot didn't go in. That was a great block by, I think it was Dyer again who made the block. Good performance from him. And it was just an overall very impressive performance. Sterling, like you said, it's hard to pick out players who didn't play well. It was a total team effort, and even though this was a quote unquote draw, it was still a comprehensive performance. So I have to ask, we know our fate now. We know what we have to do. We're a couple weeks away here from having to go to Barcelona. How do you guys feel? What's the confidence level? What's the vibe as we get ready for this away match?
Man, the bookies have Barcelona as favorites, and I do believe that that is the correct way to look at it. I think that we certainly have a chance of going through. I think that honestly, it's a 50-50 shot as to whether or not we go through. The first leg is away, and I think that certainly helps us. The only thing about this Barcelona team that really worries me is that away leg. If we get into deep waters there where all of a sudden they score early and then they start popping the ball around and we kind of have to come out of our shell a little bit more and we have to press and play them, um, things could get really ugly. They are a great team at front running. What I mean by that is that whenever they have the lead, they are really good at extending their lead. They will turn a 1-0 game into like a 4-0 game, and you'll be like, "What happened?" It'll happen in 20 minutes in the blink of an eye. So we just have to be really careful, especially in that first leg where if they do take the lead, that we don't lose our heads and all of a sudden let 1 goal become 3 or 4 goals, and all of a sudden the tie is just away from us like it was with Dortmund, for example. I do certainly think that we're a better team than in Dortmund. We certainly defend better than a Dortmund does. So you would hope that that would not be the case, but that's just the one thing about this tie that worries me, that that away match is going to be extremely, extremely tricky. Again, I'm very happy that it's the first match and not the second match, because I feel like if we can get any type of a result there, if we can even get a draw, I really like our chances in San Siro. Um, I feel like we've had a pretty decent record against Barcelona
So
recently. We certainly haven't been trounced by them anytime in recent memory. And even away, we had that great performance a couple of years ago. Um, Very different team. The team under Xavi compared to the team now is very different, but I feel like there's some confidence that we can still take from some of our more recent performances against Barcelona, because last time that they were at the Miazza, we beat them. It was a 1-0 win from a Çalhanoğlu goal. So yeah, I think if we can get through the first leg relatively unscathed, then I think our chances will increase dramatically. But that first leg is still
the
very worrying.
the one thing I'll say, and I want to point out, is that Dortmund made a tactical switch after their first match. They got annihilated 4-0. And for their home leg, they switched to a back three. And you obviously saw how it went. Significantly more success. And I don't want to read too much into that because of the nature of the match. Obviously, Barcelona were probably a little complacent knowing they had such a huge lead. But it's still worth noting Dortmund switches to this back three and puts 3 goals past Barcelona. I do think we can expose Barcelona's defense. I do think there's going to be opportunities there, but completely agree with Sterling's point about, hey, man, like it. I talked about how going to Munich against Bayern is one of the 5 hardest fixtures in world football. Well, one of the 2 hardest fixtures in world football is probably going to Camp Nou and playing Barcelona. So it's another tough test for the guys. Irfan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little nervous about this setup tactically, obviously, just because I feel like the Barcelona team in general, the speed and kind of trickery of the team can give us a lot of trouble. But I also trust our ability to kind of hold our own and to play our game. The one thing that Inzaghi's shown, I think, is that, we can implement and execute a game plan like better than anybody, right? Ultimately, like if it's a question of execution, I trust us to do it. Now, if we're going to get blown out of the water with just the opposing team's talent, that's a different situation. I don't feel like Barcelona necessarily has that much more talent than us in that regard. I think we're pretty seasoned. We've kind of seen it all and done it all at this point. This team, it's funny, this team actually reminds me a lot of, again, I'm not saying we're going to have the same success, but this team actually reminds me a lot of that 2010 treble winning team, mainly because it's full of these like tough sort of like veteran type players who are not phased, not really, like too, overblown by the moment. Like, they held their own, I think, against a very difficult Bayern team in Munich and this return leg where there's a lot of pressure on us. And so I feel like the team mental strength in Europe and their focus really to execute the game plan is very good. And so, a lot of this comes down to luck and execution and all that other sort of stuff. So some of it will be outside of our control. But I think that we'll be up for it. I think we'll be up for the challenge. I think we'll play really well. And I think we'll hold our own. And what ends up happening over the course of 2 legs, I guess we'll have to see. The thing that worries me, though, is I was just looking this up. The remaining teams, PSG, Arsenal, and Barcelona, have 3 of the youngest starting 11s in all of this year's Champions League. So I think Red Bull Salzburg is like the youngest team, like starting 11 throughout the tournament. But among the teams that are around now, PSG, Arsenal, and Barcelona have among the youngest. And Barcelona, there's really only one outlier for them, which is Lewandowski. But for us, we consistently have the oldest team starting 11 in the entire Champions League. And that comes with its benefits, which again, you're not fazed by the moment. You've been there, done that. You have this like veteran, tough presence. But later on in the season, that can also be really challenging. And the gap is pretty strong. Like there's times where the average age gap between what Inter is putting out there and what Barcelona or PSG or Arsenal is putting out there is like 6 or 7 years. So that's a huge age gap difference. So that's what worries me. It's just the fatigue factor. I'm hoping we don't have any injuries. I'm hoping Dumfries is back. I'm hoping that, we can maybe gain a little bit of momentum in the league so that not every match day is, decisive for us when it comes to winning the league. It'd be great to see Napoli drop a few points, take some pressure off of us so we can rotate a little bit. But man, down the stretch, it's going to be so difficult with the kind of matches that we have to play and how meaningful they are and how often they are. So I'm really worried about the fatigue element. But again, these guys have shown that they can really focus in and execute in the Champions League. And I expect the same to happen over the two legs with Barcelona. I think Bayern was actually a really good setup for us because we're going to see a lot of the similar kind of tactical play from Barcelona that we saw with Bayern. But obviously Barcelona is a little bit younger and healthier and a little bit trickier. So we'll see kind of what we do. But I think we'll hold our own, and I'm looking forward to the chess match.
I do say something about where the game is currently in regards to the amount of fixtures that there are in every year and every season now. This in the near future could really become a young man's game again because um, there has to be a reason why this many quote unquote young teams are making it deep in the competition is because they still have the legs to be able to compete. But I think something else to give Inter a ton of credit for, we talk about obviously, these teams are younger, but it's because these teams are younger because they have more money to spend. And, when you have money, you can go and you can buy younger players. You're not scraping the bottom of the barrel, like we are, unfortunately, sometimes for these veteran players that we can sign on free or sign for very cheap. So I just wanted to kind of talk some numbers with you guys just to kind of put it in perspective really quickly. So I have basically the salary and amortization costs per team that made it into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And I'll just talk about the teams that actually made it into the semifinals. So, number one, you have PSG, 790 million is what they're paying basically between salary and amortization costs. Then you have Arsenal, 580 million euros. Barcelona, 513 million euros. Inter, 303. Just think about that for a second. 790, 580, 513, and then Inter well at the bottom of the list, 303 between salaries and amortization costs on an annual basis. We shouldn't even be in this conversation. we we should not even be here at the table with these other teams when you look at the amount of money that they're spending to be in the same position that we are. So, yeah, we are the oldest team. We're the oldest team because we have to be the oldest team. That's just the way that this is going to work. We can't afford to play the same game that these other clubs in Europe that have way more money to spend than us are able to play. And again, it's credit to Inzaghi, it's credit to Beppe, it's credit to Ausilio for putting together a team that's capable of punching well above its weight financially because, again, we really have no business even being in the conversation.
But to the point you're making, Sterling, we do play this game a different way, and it's not just financially, it's on the pitch. If you look at the stats, we do not press. We are one of the teams who press least in this competition. And when you look at the teams who press most, Bayern Munich press more than any other team in this Champions League. But if you look immediately after them, the list is PSG and Barcelona. And Arsenal are much further down that list. And that's a big stylistic difference, right? You've got three teams who have young, fresh legs who hound you. And then you have Inter, who we play our gradual, I don't want to say conservative, but we play mistake-free football. And what that means is we aren't letting these teams spring us on the counter. And yeah, Barcelona's faster than us, but we're disciplined enough that if we turn over the ball, we have enough numbers that, Yamal can't just sprint by us. We have good solidarity in our defense. And yeah, I do agree with Irfan. Like, I'm concerned that over the course of the two matches, the youth will win out. And, you saw how gassed we were at the end of today's match against Bayern. Like, it wasn't a pretty sight, but we've adapted to it and we have a plan and we are unequivocally us. No team plays like this that's left in the competition.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point. I think it is a clash of styles for sure. And I think that it's going to be very interesting for people to see, people who might not be as familiar with Inter as we are, to see how that style clash occurs, against Barcelona the way it did against Bayern. And if we were to somehow get past Barcelona, how it would feel against Arsenal or PSG. One thing, I know we're starting to run a little bit over, but one thing I wanted to just kind of briefly get from you guys is, our good friend and friend of the pod, Anthony, made a good point today. He said, this team has proved beyond its resources what it can and will do. I simply can't be angry or upset for the remainder of the season. They've performed at Herculean levels. And saying it the way he said it and what he said actually put it in really good context for me. And I'm wondering if you guys feel the same way, which is honestly, after making it to the Champions League semifinals and being in this crazy stretch down to the wire against Napoli for the championship, for the Scudetto, it's really hard. And knowing what we know about the turmoil that this team faced in the offseason and how much changes or lack of changes occurred with the squad and with the investment in the club and the age of the club and, the reinforcements that we have, it really is hard to be upset with these guys if they, fall to Barcelona or if they come up a little bit short against Napoli. I feel like the Napoli one would hurt me a lot more if we lose the Scudetto down the stretch, but it is hard not to be proud of this team and to not be disappointed regardless of what happens now down the stretch of the season. And somewhere I know Jay is rolling his eyes at the sentiment of this, but what do you guys think?
I agree. And I said on X, and listen, if this actually comes to fruition, I'll delete it on X and pretend it never happened. But um, I said when they asked Inzaghi in a press conference, I think it was probably like 3 weeks ago, they said, you're still fighting on two fronts. And he said, "Excuse me, we're fighting on three." And he held up the number three there. Um, like that fired me up so much because I was just like, listen, this guy wants all three. Like he wants to win a treble, and that's the mentality that Inter should have. And listen, we shouldn't give up any competition. We should go as deep as we can in every competition. And if we fall short, we fall short. And like you're saying, Irfan, it would be very hard for me to be mad at the team, even if we did fall short, just because I think that that's the mentality that we should have is to fight in every single competition. We're not going to give up the Coppa Italia without a fight. We're not going to give up the Scudetto without a fight. And we damn sure ain't giving up the Champions League without a fight. We should be pushing in all three competitions because that's what Inter is. And whether that same thought process could lead us to zero trophies. Very well. We could get zero to Tuli, but even if we did, it'd be hard for me to be that upset if we really went down swinging in every competition and really brought it down to the wire. Because that's what you do the sport for. You want to win trophies and you want to be competitive on all fronts. So I agree. Obviously, I hope that does not happen. I think that we'll walk away with at least one, if not two, if not three trophies this year. I truly believe that. But this is football and anything can happen. But I'm definitely proud of this team.
I'll shoot you straight. I'm going to be livid if we do not win the Scudetto. It might be unfair. I understand what this team is trying to accomplish in all three fronts, but we need to win the Scudetto against a historically mediocre Napoli side that we're vying against here. If Conte wills this team to victory, I'll tip my hat, but we need to win the Scudetto. We're the best team in the league, and I want that 21st. I want it so bad. The Champions League, it's kind of whatever happens from here on out. we gave this thing our best shots. I'll be upset, sure, but I won't be mad. I will be mad if we lose the Scudetto. And I'm telling you, I'll call my shot right now. We're winning the Coppa Italia.
The one that no one cares about. I mean, Sterling cares about it, I guess. I don't.
I don't care about it either, to be quite honest, but we're winning it.
I want them all, to make no mistake about that. And listen, the Scudetto would hurt the most. I agree with that 100%, especially because it feels like if we lose it to Conti, it just hurts so much more because we're losing it to him, number one, but also because it just feels like Napoli's had this unfair advantage all season, and they get to rest up. They kick their feet up during the midweek. I don't know if you saw, there was a video floating around social media tonight of what the Napoli players were doing tonight while we were obviously playing against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. They were in an Italian restaurant somewhere, singing with the waiting staff and having pasta and hanging out and just genuinely having a good time, which is that's their prerogative. They can do that, but like, don't forget, like, we're playing like a third more matches than them this season. And so, it would really suck to lose to a team that we are legitimately better than just because they have so much of an easier schedule than we do. Because I truly believe that if they win the Scudetto, it is 100% down to the fact that they get to rest midweek while we have to play other games. So that one would hurt the most by far, no doubt about that. But um, even that, I hate to say it, but I kind of get it to a certain extent. And I don't want to give Inzaghi an excuse because I also said on this podcast last time I was on here that if he doesn't win the Scudetto, that's 1 in 4 seasons when we've been the favorite in all 4 seasons. But, it's football, man. These things happen. So we'll see how it goes. But I think we're getting all 3.
The real takeaway here is, wait, Conte was letting his team eat pasta? Wow, he's gone soft.
I actually didn't see the pasta.
Man.
Maybe that may have been hyperbole, but they were definitely having a good time. I'm surprised they weren't drinking the time that they were having. They were singing songs, and there was a woman on the microphone. It was a whole scene, man. Definitely check that out if you have it on it was what is that? Italian Football TV. That's what it was. Check it out on there. But definitely very
Yeah.
relaxed, very chill.
Conte is the reason I know that carrots have sugar in them, because he will not let his players eat carrots because he thinks they have too much sugar in them for a vegetable. Like, the man is a lunatic, and that's why we kind of love him as a Italian anyway. So we got to wrap up. This is not much of an IJ Subito. This is more of just interjections full at this point, but we have to end on a listener question, and I'll let Irfan handle this one. Irfan, this is from Jay from Sydney, Australia, asks, is it better to throw the semifinal against Barcelona in order to avoid inevitable humiliation in the final against Arsenal?
Well, considering PSG are going to be in the final, Jay from Sydney seems to be partaking in what we call alternative facts, false news. No, it's not better to throw the match, even if somehow Arsenal were to get to the finals. We should relish the chance to play against an EPL team, though it didn't work out well last time in the final. But hey, let's just forget about that. No, we got to win against Barcelona if we can. Arsenal does not and should not scare us. But thanks for being a long-time listener, Jay.
I agree. I think I think PSG will find a way past Arsenal. I truly do. I think that playing at the Parc des Princes right now is like the last place on earth you want to play. So I think that Arsenal could potentially lose pretty big there.
To Sterling's point earlier, I don't hear anyone saying Arsenal were outplayed by Real Madrid because they scored 2 set-piece goals. Anyway.
Okay, that's right. And Jay from Sydney, I would just be curious what the Milan score was today or yesterday. Certainly they're probably playing too, right? Nope.
Don't worry, Irfan. Next year, when Milan has one competition a week in a Scudetto race, you're never going to hear the end of it.
That's a good point.
Next season, Napoli, 100%. They will go to the last match day because they don't have any other fucking competitions. It's going to be very aggravating.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap this thing up. I have to go to bed. Irfan, I'll let you take us away.
Right. Well, since Miko is actually in Milano celebrating after watching and witnessing the match, in the spirit of our good friend Miko, Forza Inter.
That's right. I have on good authority Miko has not gone to bed. All right. We'll catch you all after the weekend. We'll talk about the Bologna match then. Sterling, thanks as always.
Pleasure to be here.
All
Hey,
right.
guys.
You guys.